So I'm here in Stanford Hill, and really, what a day, what a day. You know, the Jewish people have to just be so strong, and each and every one of us is looking to find our resilience at every single moment in the day. And we are going to strengthen ourselves, even when we go through the challenging, difficult times. And today, with the sad news of our wonderful Manfred Goldberg, who was such an icon for each and every one of us, for the Jewish people, the strength, the incredible gift that he had, and how many people he shared with, and everything that he did for the entire Jewish people. And for that, I can't tell you how Kadosh Baruch Hu organizes everything for us in a way that it just happens that tonight, Chava Wulwick will be speaking for us. And she lived just down the road from Manfred and our beautiful Lahavdil Shari. And she had the opportunity to be able to pop in and out and to be able to have this beautiful connection. So how much more beautiful that Hashem orchestrate this, that Chava would be able to be teaching us tonight in the Zechus of Manfred. I'm just going to quickly add, because I'm going in now to just share a few words, and then I'm going to come back to you. And if anybody does have a challah for the end, I didn't realize that I don't have enough challah doughs because I brought my own one here. And if anybody does have a challah at the end of the share, that you would be my fresh challah, because my sourdough one will be at home, but it's not ready for Russia. But if it is and we get there, then I'll be able to do that as well. But if we can just have in mind also Gutya Briner, Vasperol Chaya for a Refuah Shalema, and all of Klal Yisrael who need a refuah, and also our dear Shira. And everybody should just really have in mind that our Kadosh Baruch Hu should just send Mashiach. And as this beautiful Shabbos weekend, the Shabbos Project weekend, which isn't really here, but Shabbos is here. So we can take our Shabbos and elevate our Shabbos and make sure that other people share and gain from your Shabbos. So I'm going to hand you over. I'm going to turn off because otherwise it's going to get noisy and complicated. And I will be back with you all very soon. And needs just mute me. Thank you, Chava.
Hi, everybody. I'm just going to try and do share screen. Just give me one sec. I think it's just a bit complicated when I have to do it for the first time. Let me see if we can have that. Okay. See if we can do that. I really want it to be this. Okay, we'll just do this and hope for the best. Okay. Right, yeah, I think it's okay. I think it's working. Okay. I hope it's going to work out, because it's not exactly set up how I want, but never mind. Welcome everybody to another one of Joanne's regular Thursday night. I know she can't hear me, so I can say anything I like about her. She's unbelievable. Together with her team, makes it happen every week. She has to phone people, she has to confirm, etc., publicizing, and to all of you that come every single week. And this Shabbos, it's not in England because we have our own thing with the chief rabbi, but the Shabbos project, or the Shabbat project, is around the world, and it was set up by the chief rabbi of South Africa, Rabbi Warren Goldstein. I don't know, many years ago, more than 10, I don't know how long it is, but anyway, the point of it was to be able to connect with people perhaps that you don't know, and to influence them and to make them, show them what it was like to what Shabbos would be like in other people, in it, to show someone what an authentic Shabbos experience was. And through that opportunity, people really became like, you know, like closer to Torah and mitzvahs. They saw what the beauty of Shabbos was, and it's just incredible, because that also ties quite nicely into what I'm going to be speaking about, which is about Avraham's Hachnasas Orchim and Lot, whether or not he was the real deal or whether he was a bit of a copycat and he didn't quite get it. So first of all, I'd like to dedicate today's learning as well in memory of my mum, who passed away just after Shavuos, Lu Nishmas Imi Morasi Esther Bas Harav Meir, my wonderful mum. And also today, well, obviously now it's tonight, but this morning, Thursday morning, unfortunately, we heard the very sad news that a very close friend to a lot of people, and someone who for 20 years spent his life going around to share the story of his experiences in the Holocaust, Manfred Goldberg. So Ilu Nishmas Hechova Michael Ben Baruch, and The Levi is going to be tomorrow in Shahar Lane if anybody wants to know about it. I'm also going to put a link at the end of a recording. I don't know if it was his last public speech, but I actually went to Henanadas and I actually recorded him giving his testimony it was the end of, I think, the 27th of July 2025, really just before he got quite ill, like at the end of August, when we knew that he was unfortunately very unwell. I'll talk a little bit about Manfred a little bit later. So I'm sharing screen. So if I'm not sharing the screen correctly, you just let me know and I'll keep moving it forward. There's also a handout if anyone likes, people like handouts. But if you want to look where I'm reading from today, it's basically Bereshit. I'm going to start off Perek Yud Tes, chapter 19, and then I'm going to move to chapter 18. So I'm going to talk today. I'm going to ask the question: was Lot, what was he imitating, or did he live by imitation, or did he internalize what he learned in Avraham's house? Now, Avraham was married to Sarah, and Sarah, and Lot was her brother, and he was part of their household until at some stage he decided, there was this whole argument last week, etc., about shepherds. Won't go into it now. And then they split, and Lot went to Sodom, which was notorious for inhospitality, and Avraham said, you choose wherever you want to go and I will go anywhere else. So well, let's look together at Bereshit. First of all, here's the Shabbos project. Let me see if I can move this forward. 1 second. Why is it not moving forward? Let's see, it is. Yeah, okay. So why is this? Yeah. So we've got the story. So I've got it on the board, but I'm going to obviously read it out. This is the story in Perek Yud Tes, and it's in this week's Parsha of Vayera. So here comes the story, which some people might be familiar with, but if not, you can always look it up afterwards. Here comes the story. So it starts with Pasuk Aleph. Vayovu shtei hamalachim Sodoma ba'erev, v'lo yoshev b'shar Sodom, vayar Lot, vayakom likrosam, vayishtachu apayim arza. So 2 angels came to Sodom in the evening, and Lot was sitting at the gate of Sodom. Just 1 second, I have to put my phone on silent. And he said to these people, or angels, please turn aside to your servant's house and stay overnight. Wash your feet, get up early, go on your way. And they said, no thanks, we'd rather stay in the street overnight. Okay, this is really interesting. Lot is offering hospitality in the place which is the actual antithesis of hospitality. Okay, he urged them greatly, and they turned towards him, and they entered his house, and he made them a feast and baked matzah, and they ate. But before they lay down, the men of the city, the men of Sodom, circled round the house, both young and old, from every area, every people from every quarter of the city, from the edges of the city. And they called to Lot, and they said to him, where are the men that came to you tonight? Bring them out to us so we may know them. Lot went out to them to the entrance of the house, and he shut the door behind him. And he said, I beg you, my brothers, do not act so wickedly. Then he says, Lot carries on, and he says, behold, I have 2 daughters that have not ever been with a man. I pray, let me bring them out to you, and you can do whatever you like to them, whatever's good in your eyes. But please do not do anything to these men who have come to the shelter of my roof. This is a very, very strange story, because here we have this like dichotomy between Lot, who's in a place where hospitality is not allowed to be offered, and he offers them hospitality, even insists. And then when the people of the city get wind of the fact he's harboring these terrible, terrible guests, or that it's terrible that he's harboring these lovely guests rather, then Lot says, well, don't do anything to my precious protected guests. If you want to like be busy with things, here, take my 2 daughters. They've never been married. Hang out with them for a bit. Not the nicest thing. It's like very, very hospitable, almost too hospitable to not be nice to your guests, but not nice to your own children. But why did Lot offer to be hospitable if it was against what was going on in the city? Why did he get up to greet them? Why, you could say, because he didn't want to leave them in the street. No, Sodom was notorious for inhospitality. I don't know if anybody's ever heard the Greek myth of the bandit I hope I'm saying it correctly, Procrustes, all right, who forced people, if they didn't quite fit, he had like a Procrustean bed, so that he put people on it, and if you didn't fit to the bed and you were too short, he would stretch you. You would be stretched, and if you were too tall, they would chop off your legs, and that's what the Midrash tells us happened in Sodom. That's how disgusting they were. It's a bit difficult to understand exactly what the Midrash is saying, but perhaps they wanted everybody to be conformist. You had to be exactly like them. So maybe perhaps it was a very fertile area and they only wanted very rich people to come there because they were worried that they didn't want people to steal the riches of their place. And in fact, the Safano in Bereshis Yud Tes Aleph, why did he get up? By Yakom, by Likrosam, and he got up to meet them. Pen Yolinu Barachov. He was worried they would have to sleep in the street. Shahayu Oz Haminhag Bishah Arim Kushain Machnisim. So basically, what happened was in the neighborhood, generally, in that general neighborhood, nobody ever wanted, they didn't want to let people in. They wanted to like put people off. It was the best anti-immigration. They didn't get any migrants coming in. I know that's been in the news today with people who are offering jobs, secretly and things like that. They did not want any unwanted migrants coming in. They didn't want any ships from France with rubber dinghies, etc., etc. So this seems like Lot was so lovely. He didn't want these people who've come to the city to be in trouble, so he offered them somewhere to stay. Now, I haven't got this on the sheet, but there is a Gemara in Brachos which says, if you ever see Lot and his wife, you have two brachos to make. On his wife, you have to say Baruch Dayan HaEmes, because she was turned to a pillar of salt. And I have actually been somewhere near the Dead Sea where there is something which they call Lot's wife. It's just like a vertical pillar of salt or rock, okay? But listen what it says, Va'al Lot, and if you ever saw Lot, Omer, Baruch Zocher es Hasadikim. Blessed be Hashem who remembers the righteous. So this could be amazing. It's like an amazing way to think. Like when you see Lot, he's so amazing. It is amazing to think that he stepped up and he looked after these angels or men that came to the city. But it isn't so amazing what he did to his daughters. Or it could be, according to Rashi, is that perhaps we're remembering the righteous one, that is Avraham, in whose merit Lot was saved. And then Lot didn't exactly know what to do, and he knew that the people in the city were not going to be so happy if he took in visitors. So, one second. I'm just going to find the right thing to move. Sorry about this. Sorry, here we go. Okay, so one of the things Lot says, looking very carefully at what he says, he tells the people to come to his house, but he says to them, Suruna, sort of like turn aside, like Some Rabbi Aseta, turn aside. So Rashi says, why did he tell them to come to his house, but sort of like go a funny way? Okay, so Rashi says he told them that they should go on a roundabout way so that people shouldn't realize he was coming to his house. They would come to his house. Lot didn't want to be seen walking in the street in public where people would see that he was bringing in guests to his house. So he told them, look, you go round the back, go, turn left, and meet me at my house. He didn't want to be seen. He was worried what the people of the city would do to him or what would be done to the guests if someone find out. He told them, wait outside, hang out in the street a bit. One second. I am not moving forward. Why am I not moving forward? Sorry about this. I need to go on the slideshow from the beginning. No, why is it not happening what I want? From current slide. Slideshow. I don't know if you can see what I can see because I've got so many things. Can you see a sheet that says, why can I not see? Why am I not seeing? Oh, here we go. I think you should be able to see what I see. 1 second. Okay. So this is the one which says he told the people to just go a roundabout. I hope you can see the screen. It should say Rashi on Bereshis. Can anyone tell me a thumbs up if you can see Rashi on Bereshis? Madeline, thank you very much. Okay. So what was Lot so scared about? And this is what's really interesting. When the people first came to his house, he says to them, Vilinu v'rachatzu raglechem. Stay overnight and then wash your feet. Now, if you were invited to my house and you just come on a plane in the hot, muddy desert, a hot desert, and you'd be walking a few days in the sun, and I said to you, come inside, go to bed, what would be nicer? I think it would be nicer if I said to you, would you like a shower? Right? But he said to them, no. You come in, stay overnight, and wash your feet. So Rashi asks on that question, and here are the words of Rashi. Vilini v'rachat surach lechem. V'chi dar kon shel bnei Adam lo lum techila v'achar kach rochetz. Is it normal for people to go to bed and not have a shower if they've been on a journey? Surely you offer them the opportunity to clean themselves, etc., etc. So this is what Rashi says. That brings them Medrash, which says Lot was very nervous because if the people from Sodom came banging on his door, if they had their muddy boots on their feet at that time, if they'd just come in and it looked like they've still got the dirt on their feet, then Lot could say, me? I haven't had these people here. They just walked in. They've still got their muddy boots on their feet. But if they'd already looked like they'd had a wash and a shave, etc., etc., and they were in their pajamas, then it would be obvious that he'd been harboring these visitors in the house for a long time. So the people of Sodom were very not nice. They used to do things like, if they did even give anyone money, they wrote their name, like, imagine, they probably didn't have pound notes then at that time, they had coins. They like engraved their initials. And then when that person tried to spend the money in the market, everyone knew that they couldn't take that money, and then the person starved because they couldn't get any food. And then at the end, when the person died, everyone came along and they just took their golden coins back. Lots and lots of disgusting midrashim about how the people behaved. What were they trying to do? They wanted to bring an end to travelers because they thought, well, this is what the Ramban says, they thought, if people come here, we're going to have to give lots of tzedakah. We don't want that. We only want very wealthy people who can afford to live here. It's a little bit like Monaco, I was thinking to myself. Anyway, Lot comes along and he says to the people, I'm going to make you a feast, okay? And the word mishteh is written in the pasuk, and the word mishteh is always, according to Sephorano, it's always has an association with wine, like lishtot, shtia, okay? It's always drinking. So we say mishteh on Purim. We're supposed to have one of the things we're supposed to have is a sudas Purim. It's supposed to be a mishteh because ein mishteh ela yain. So Sephorano says this is like a flag for us to remind us that what was Lot doing? He offered them food, but actually what he was offering, he was offering them drink, which later on, the Mefarshim look back at this, that he was a person who was an alcoholic or something like that, because he, later on, when he was with his daughters in the cave, he got drunk, and then he got himself into all the trouble with the daughters in the cave, which is another story for another time. Really interesting. So is Lot nice or is he not nice? If he's offering food, but he doesn't really give them food, he just gives them drink, gets them drunk. And then we can see this really weird thing where he offers his daughters. This is very, very strange. So the Ramban comments on this, Nachmanides comments on that, and he says, we see the praise of Lot. He's an amazing guy because he exerts himself a lot for the guests that came to his house. But how on earth could he offer his daughters up? How could he do that? Which father wouldn't want to do everything he could to protect his own children? How on earth did Lot behave like that? So there's some sort of weirdness in Lot's hospitality, that he could offer up his own daughters. And it's amazing that he still did try and be hospitable, even though he lived in Sodom. And at the beginning, I told you that it says right at the beginning, I have to have a chumash at the same time. I just can't have it all up at the same time. It's too complicated to show you all the same, right? When Lot saw them from a distance, it says, the Rashi tells us, Vayar Lot saw. What did he see? Mibeis Avraham lamad lachzor es al ha'archim. Lot learned this behavior because he saw from spending so much time with Avraham Avinu that the right thing to do was to invite guests to his home, which is amazing that he even did that when he was under so much pressure. But what's really interesting is that the Mefarshim look very carefully at the story of Lot, and they look very carefully at the story one chapter before, which is the story of Avraham Avinu, where Avraham has guests come to his house and how his behavior is different. And a lot of Mepharshim point us in the direction to think about, they're literally begging us to look at the story of Avraham. And at the end, I'm going to put a link in to show you, I've created a document. It could be much more powerful. I only did some. And if someone wants to take it home and look at it themselves and try and work out the differences, there are loads of compare and contrast. You know, if you had to do that as a homework assignment, of the story between Lot and Avraham. And I'll show you the sheet later on, and then I'll put it in the link if anybody wants to look at it. I'll put it in the chat. So when Avraham sees the strangers, it says, one second, here's the story of Avraham. So the story of Avraham is that Hashem appeared to him, he lifted up his eyes and he looked and he saw the men, so he went to them and he said, oh, let a little bit of water be fetched, wash your feet, recline under the tree, and I'll fetch you a morsel of bread. He says, I'm going to give you a morsel of bread, but in fact, he offers them a very beautiful feast. And then Avraham hurried and he told his wife to get involved and he tried to do everything and he ran to the herd and he got a calf. But so he was looking after his visitors very, very, very nicely. What's really interesting is, remember I told you before, Lot told this to the visitors, he said, Vilinu v'rochasu raglechem, stay overnight and wash your feet. But Avraham says something different. What does he say? Avram amar lahem techila rachatzu raglechem. Avraham says, the first thing he says is, come in and wash your feet, i.e., come in and take a shower. Obviously, Avraham was living in a place where it was his own home and he was not worried. He wasn't worried that the people were out to get him, so we understand that part. But there's another comment that Rashi makes on that very same thing. And he says, Rashi says, v'rachatzu raglechem. Why does Avraham, in contrast to Lot, tell the travelers to wash themselves? Because Rashi tells us, kasavo shehem aravim shemishtachavim la'avak raglechem. There is this concept in the ancient times, Rashi telling us the Midrash, which says that Avraham was super particular. He did not want the guests to come into his house with muddy shoes. Why? Because there was this form of, I don't want to say idol worship, where people used to worship the dust of their feet. And he did not want people to come into his home and bring in even the dust of idol worship. So the idea behind that is a bit strange. Perhaps it means wherever I've walked is holy ground, or it's like I am the product of where I've come from, so I worship the self or where I've come from, whether that's, I don't know, educational institutions. It's just like just an interesting idea of what that midrash could mean. But Rashi carries on and says, "V'hikpid shelo lahachnes avodah zarah leveso." Avraham was very makpid. He didn't want to bring avodah zarah to his house, and I think that is in contrast. It literally, Rashi says, "Aval Lot shelo hikpid." Lot was not makpid. Lot was not careful about avodah zarah bringing his house. Hikdim lina l'rachitza. So for Avraham, he says, "V'rachatzu raglechem." First, wash your feet, and for Lot, it says, Velinu v'rachatzu raglechem. He says first sleep over. Now, obviously, in Lot's defense, he was worried that he would get found out, but also, not in his defense, like to accuse him, he was not so careful about the dust of his feet. Rashi and a lot of the other Mepharshim beg us to look at the similarities and differences between Avraham and Lot. Has anybody got any questions or comments they want to wait? Please, by all means, unmute yourself if you want to ask anything or say anything. I can't, I'm teaching, I can't speak to you. Right, sorry. It's just my dad's not well, so my sister's with him. Refuah Shalema for Yosef ben Deborah. If you look at the two stories, let me see if I did it down. If you look at the two stories side by side, I'll show you in a minute what I've done, but I'll send it to you at home because we don't have enough time for it today. If you look and you see the stories are so similar, they're such parallel stories. So you say, like, where was he sitting? Where was Lot sitting? Where was Avram sitting? Which visitors were seen? So for Lot, it says Anoshim, and let me remember the way around it is. And for Avraham, it says Anoshim, but for Lot, it says Malachim. So maybe he thought they were different people, but maybe for Avraham, he was so used to seeing, Malachim, that it was like they were like regular people. The time of the day is mentioned. The reaction when he saw them is mentioned. He bowed down. They both bowed down. The order of the washing, what food was ordered, who helped, etc., etc. There's lots and lots of different parallels. Let me see here. So here's just like the text, and if you want to look at it yourself, it's one is your Ches and one is your test and Bereshis. And I don't know if you can see this chart over here. You can see in wherever it is. So for example, it says Vayovo Shtei Hamalachim. So for Lot, they're called Shtei Malachim, and for Avram, can you see I did it? Oops, 1 second. And for Avram, they're called Shlosha Anoshim. And then you've got the purple one, V'yishtachu Apayim Arza. So all of these things, the Mefarshim pick up, they're so nuanced, okay? Everything is so similar. So everything, I've tried to color code it. Look, it says, Yoshev Bishar Sodom, Yoshev Pesach HaOhel. Lot sat outside the entrance of the city. All these things are so important. They're teaching us what is going on. And I don't have time to tell you all things like this, but I'll send it to you. So if anybody wants to look at it more, that's absolutely fine. 1 second. The question is, Lot was amazing because he was offering hospitality in Sodom, but he wasn't so amazing because he didn't quite get it right. So for Avraham, for example, according to Midrash, very important that people should not bring Avodah Zarah dust into his house. And Lot, how on earth could he subject his own daughters to the will of the mob? How is that hospitality if you're not looking after your nearest and dearest? So the Ramban, Maimonides, in his magnum opus, the Mishnah Torah, where he's sort of one of the first people who codified the laws, he says, Derech brioso shel odom, lihios nimshach b'da'asov u'b'ma'asov achar re'ov v'chaverov. It's a natural tendency for a people to be influenced in ideas by the conduct of the people around him. So we're definitely influenced by environments and to follow the habits of people nearby. Lefichach, tzarich odom lehischaber letzadikim v'leishev etzel hachachamim tomid. So what one person should do is find the best people around and hang out with them. Okay, don't be with the right people who can influence you in the right way. V'yisrachek min harashoim, and distance yourself from those wicked people. Ha'holchim b'choshech kedei shelo yilmod mima'asehem. It's the best thing to do is to choose somewhere to live. He even says, if you can't find somewhere to live where people around you are a good influence on you, he says, go and be a hermit and live on the top of a mountain with a goat by yourself. Basically, he doesn't say exactly those words, but I'm just saying he says it's so easy to get influenced. So Lot, we see, gets influenced by Avraham Avinu to be an amazing person who, despite being in Sodom, where he chose to live, which he shouldn't have chosen to live there. He got badly influenced by the people there. But despite living in Sodom, nevertheless, he still had within him the influence of Avraham Avinu, but he didn't quite get it right. And I'd like to speak a moment now about Kristallnacht, which will be this year. The commemorations will be on Sunday. We commemorate it because it's not, in inverted commas, the Jewish day that we commemorate. The world commemorates rather, but it's the 9th of November. And that was the day where it was a pogrom against Jews carried out by the Nazi Party, and they went round smashing shops, breaking windows, and people say that was like the writing on the wall before the Second World War and when Hitler came to power. And I think to myself, how did we get to a situation like that? People hung around and they were influenced by the rhetoric of the far right and the Nazi Party. And obviously, we have to do everything we can in any circumstance if someone is being oppressed to stand up for people who are being oppressed, and obviously to stand up for ourselves. But I'm thinking that how on earth could it be that people got influenced, because it is all too easy if you hang around with the wrong people and you listen. Of course, we want freedom of speech, but if you listen to the wrong thing and you spend too much time with the wrong influences, like they were very clever, they did things like Hitler Youth, and they trained young people, they indoctrinated them. If people are with other people who have got an agenda and they want to drive forward their agenda, if you're with the wrong crowd, you can easily become influenced. The same way Lot became influenced for the good with Avraham, and with the bad, he sort of lost his way a bit because he was living in Sodom. I would like to now speak about someone who was a survivor, who lived through, who was alive and in 1938 and was living in Germany. And that is this man, this very special man who's a neighbour. I live at number 15, and this man and his wife Shari live at number 1. So I have the great honour and privilege to go most weeks. We went to shul with them Shabbos morning, and we walked home with them. And I even, when my children were younger, he gave a talk on Tisha B'Av, and I said, I really want my children to hear this talk, but they didn't want to come, and it was a fast day. So we arranged, and he came to my house in November, and he just came and he spoke to, I collected all the teenagers in the neighborhood, and we did an event in my house. And since then, I know he's spoken many times at Jewish places, non-Jewish places. And in fact, he was the guide that was asked to be a guide when William and Kate went to Stutthof, because unfortunately he was interned there twice, once for a shorter period of time and once for a longer period of time. And he was awarded a few years ago, I think before COVID already, a BEM for his work towards Holocaust education. And this year he was awarded an MBE. And in fact, he was supposed to have the investiture in November, but because he knew he wasn't well, they made a special investiture. He went with the king. If you Google his name, you'll see loads of pictures of him with Prince Charles and William and Kate. A really incredible man, a true legend, who I had the privilege to live right down the road and to watch him firsthand. And he told me, and I will not forget this, because one of my children heard him speak in school once, and he told me, with all the atrocities that he saw, and he saw behavior, terrible behavior, he had his catchphrase, and his catchphrase was, never overlook blatant injustice. He said to himself, I am watching how people are behaving terribly, and I'm going to do everything. And believe me, it must have been very difficult for him not to lose his faith and not to lose his humanity, and say to himself, I am not going to be like other people. If they behave badly, I will not get influenced. I'm going to go all the way to the other side and say to myself, I want to be a good person. I want to be the best person. I don't want to do anything in the way that these animals, how people, they were human beings, but they didn't behave like human beings, they behaved like animals. He said, I want to behave with humanity and kindness. I want to do everything opposite. And it takes tremendous strength. We saw what the Rambam says. Maimonides says, you should do everything you can to put yourself in the right environment with the right people and not let yourself be influenced by negativity. So obviously he didn't have a choice where he should be, but he's made a promise to himself. He was never going to be influenced by the atrocities that he saw, and he didn't want to take revenge. All he wanted to do, his revenge was going to be to live with good morals and kindness to all people. And I believe he managed to achieve that. He had like 4 sons and grandchildren and daughters-in-law, and his whole family and great-grandchildren, his whole family living in his legacy, which is quite remarkable. So my question to you today is, was Lot just imitating Avraham, or did he internalize Avraham's midas? Was he actually like Avraham? So there's this balance. It was amazing that even though he was in the place where people behaved badly, he mimicked Avraham enough. But he should never have gone into Sodom, because that was a bad area, badly influenced by our neighbors, in such a way that he then offered up his own daughters. But Lot was somehow influenced by his environment, but he was also powerfully influenced by Avraham Avinu. Sorry. Now I'm going to try and show this video. Let's see if I can do this. It's 1 minute. There was a psychologist, 1 second. 1 second, just 1 minute. 1 second. I have to move this. I don't know if you can hear it. 1 second. 1 second. So there was a psychologist in the 1960s And his name was Albert Bandura, and he created something called social learning theory. And I don't know if you're going to be able to. So hopefully this week, when you're in shul, if you're in shul and you listen to the Sedra or you read the Sedra, Parshas Vayera, look at chapter 18 and look at chapter 19 and see if you can see any similarities and any differences. I will send out the link in a minute. I'm just going to do it when Joanne's talking. I will do it. It's just incredible to me that from the story of a famous story of Lot, where we know how he behaved towards his daughters and how he was so nice and he invited the guests. And we see this story and we see that Lot was trying to be like Avraham, even though he lived in Sodom, which was a place which was inhospitable. Somehow people get influenced by their environment. And even though Lot learned from Avraham Avinu, he almost had a mimetic transmission from Avraham Avinu, but he didn't quite internalize and understand exactly what it meant to be a person of chesed. May we, like Manfred Goldberg, Zeichet Tzadik Livracha, if I can say that, I think I can, we should all learn that when we see people behaving badly, we should do everything we can to not copy them. And when we see people behaving in a beautiful way, we should do everything we can to copy them, emulate them, and live an amazing life, so that we should all see the ultimate salvation, the ultimate redemption, where everything will be by Yom HaShem Echad Shema Echad, that the Mashiach will come, and I hope that will come speedily in our days. Remembering, of course, this week is the Shabbos Project, which was started up by Rabbi Warren Goldstein, and in tremendous appreciation always for Joanne and all the people who work behind the scenes. Anita, you know who you are, yeah? I wish everybody a wonderful Shabbos.
You too.
I'll stay on afterwards if people want to ask me questions.
Okay. Does that mean I didn't get that last bit, but that means that everybody should just have a beautiful Shabbos. We should merit Mashiach, we should merit Refuahs, Yeshua's, all of our Chatufim home. Every Jew should be safe wherever they are in the world. And each and every one of us should come home to ourselves, and then all of us together come home to Yerushalayim. The next Shabbos, Mirza Hashem, we should be literally taking our chalas to the Beis HaMikdash. For all the Kohanim, that we should be zeicha to do the Avodah of HaKadosh Baruch Hu in the best way possible. Thank you, and really simchas by all, Be'ezrat Hashem. Wishing all a beautiful Shabbos. And remember, if there's anybody that's around you that you can do something extra for their Shabbos, please do it. And if anybody needs anything for Shabbos, wants anything for Shabbos, or a place to go for Shabbos, just message me, okay? And I've told this before, and hardly anybody takes it up, but take it up. Okay, good Shabbos and lots of love.
It's here. It could be Ray, Kia,